Such a beautiful experience it was to attend this premiere for this particular movie. And this was the reintroduction of Spider-Man into the MCU, and I was wanting to see what the story is. And I was not expecting it to be this deep and this immersive with all the characters in there. Like, there are a plenty of characters, and to play around with them, all of them coming in, going out, where it happens, how it matters, how it all plays into the plot. It was a great ride. It was such a lively event, and this was my first premiere experience for a superhero movie, and the way it all happens. And I mean, it's literally just a feast for a fan like myself. I mean, of course, I'm wearing a Marvel t-shirt right here. This movie absolutely is a love letter to Spider-Man. It is like going through a comic and seeing, okay, Spider-Man is interacting with this particular character, Spider-Man is interacting with another character, and then all of this binds into a larger narrative, a larger story. It was seeing issue 1, issue 2, issue 3, all of that compiled into an omnibus, and that was put into a motion picture. And that is what this movie is all about. And of course, this is a spoiler review. We'll literally talk about it all. Of course, by this time, I understand most of you have figured out it is Jean Grey after all that Sadie Sink is playing. And I mean, come on, it was obvious from all the things that were kind of revolving around the leaks and rumor and whatnot. So it was kind of obvious that she is definitely Jean Grey. And I think that pays off. And yet, that is a very bold decision that Marvel took in this particular sense to introduce this in a Spider-Man movie in an antagonistic way. So we'll talk about her character in a while, but let's talk about the man himself, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, especially in here. So of course, we start off with only Spider-Man being there, only Spider-Man being the central figure in Peter Parker's life as well. Like, everything is happening through Spidey's views. Should I reconnect with Ned? Should I reconnect with MJ? Or no, I shall reserve and keep myself as Spider-Man. It is better for their safety. And you just see the sole focus on Spider-Man throughout the entire film, and then by the end of it, Peter realizes no, he's not just Spider-Man, he's Peter Parker. Because the reason he's Spider-Man is simply because he's Peter Parker. Because if he doesn't have the moral standing of Peter, there is no Spider-Man. Because we saw what the spider powers were capable to do in this movie. Like, when those arachnid powers take over him, when his eyes black out, we see what he's capable of. The destructive powers. There's literally a scene in there where he's fighting with Scorpion, and there's a hint of that Venom-esque Tobey Maguire Spider-Man that we see in here. But then you understand that is the arachnid powers taking over. And that is where Peter comes in with his moral ground. And Peter comes in with all the lessons from Aunt May, all the lessons that he has went through from these 3 Spider-Man films previously. And that is why it is such an integral way to see how Peter finds his way back to himself through his spider persona. And so, in a narrative way, in a sense of finding Peter back, where he was kind of away from all his friends, where he was away from his actual life, where he was just dwelling in handling crime throughout the city. And that is extensively a scene that we get in this movie, where he's interacting with this police officer, D-Wolf, and their talks are literally about Spider-Man being too much involved in just fighting crime, and that is taking a toll on him. And of course, in here, we see the transition of Spidey's strength becoming enhanced, him getting organic webbing. And I love the call outs to Peter too. I mean, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man in No Way Home, where he's like, okay, I have organic webbing, and it's like a gross thing that Andrew and Tom both kind of react to. And in here, he gets that, so he's also super grossed out. We also see callbacks to the first Spider-Man movie, like Tobey's first movie, where he's like kind of trying to put webs out, but nothing is happening. So that's a funny little scene there. And of course, you get to see that he's inspired in some ways by Andrew, by Tobey's Spider-Man, while interacting with them in No Way Home. And I think that is one of the reasons he's able to hold himself, because he understands that all these other guys have a different life as well, and they're handling this with being a superhero. Now let's talk about the other pieces in this movies, the Hulk, the Punisher. How do they come in and interact with Spidey? And so first of all, I loved Spidey's and Punisher's interaction, how they were just kind of going at each other. It was just so fun. Every time both of them are on the screen together, you just love it. You just laugh and you're like, this is so funny, man. Both of them stand their ground, they don't budge, and that is why when they clash, it's super hilarious. And it doesn't take away from their character. No one is trying to be hilarious. The moment just becomes hilarious. So it's just super funny seeing them interact. And again, like Punisher's tone, like Frank Castle's tone, you doing this, kid? Like, kind of that heavy tone is so hilarious in his own sense, where it stands out as a character and is like, okay, this is Frank Castle. Sure, he is Punisher. He will do the bad things, and in the end, he does. He kind of tries to kill Jean Grey or kind of put a bullet in her, but of course, Spidey comes in. But the thing is, he stands where he is, but he's able to bend a knee when he sees that a greater good is happening, and that is also what we see when kind of Peter comes in with MJ and is like, Frank, you need to save her. So, I mean, he understands what it's like to care for a loved one. He understands what it's like to be in love with someone. And that is very important even for a darker hero like Frank Castle. Where, yes, he is an anti-hero. He was trying to kill Jean Grey. That shows that how kind of cruel can he get. But when Spider-Man is injured, he takes that instance where he cares for him in his own hands, where he understands what it's like to be human. Then, of course, let's talk about Hulk, Professor Banner, like all the variations that we see in here. So, of course, first we see Professor Bruce Banner in here when he's interacting with Peter. And that is a very, very important scene here because they are actually talking about mutant dampeners. Because of course, even Bruce has that gamma radiation kind of dampener where he tries to stay in his normal form. And now Peter also makes a dampener for his kind of arachnid powers. And so that way, Peter also discovers that there can be a universal dampener or a universal kind of locker to these mutation powers. And that is what he also kind of puts Jean on. And of course, this will be a huge and integral part for the larger Marvel Universe in the future because this is the instance where actually a full-on mutant is introduced in here, and you also have like dampening their powers, capturing them, that the DODC does. We'll talk about DODC as well, but first let's focus on Bruce Banner. So first we get Bruce Banner, then we get this kind of a medium Hulk, not the full Hulk, kind of like the Endgame Hulk, you know, the one where Hulk and Banner are like kind of fused. That is when he is still in control from Jean Grey. But when her control breaks off and his dampener also breaks off, we see the unhinged Hulk, the Hulk who's hulked out, the Hulk which is bigger than ever, the monstrosity. And we literally see in a scene where he's capable to hold onto the building with so many pieces attached on his back, and he's literally beating Peter like bam, bam, bam. Like that particular scene beautifully shows how powerful Hulk is. Bruce Banner facilitates the creation of the dampeners as well. And now let's talk about Jean Grey. This is very important because this is for the first time we see an actual mutant, Jean Grey, and X-Men in the MCU. And the way it is introduced is very unique because this is not a Marvel film. First, these rights were with Fox. Now they have come to Marvel and they are giving it to Sony for this particular movie. Like they are facilitating the introduction of this particular character in a Sony Spider-Man film. So, I mean, of course, they have huge hopes from Spider-Man, but to kind of facilitate the origin of a mutant, of an X-Men, is such a huge deal. And they did that introduction in here. So we get the backstory that, okay, they have been in foster care. I mean, Jean and her sister Sarah. So they have been in foster care. They're kind of going through it. And then DODC comes in and captures her sister. And then they capture her. Of course, doing experiments about the mind control thing, the telepath thing. And in that, Sarah Gray is killed, which is very sad. And again, a beautiful thing to notice here was that Yelena's interaction with Peter regarding this subject. I mean, of course, Yelena gives a cameo in here. It's quite a humorous one as well. So it's kind of more heart-touching to Yelena seeing Jean like the sister who's wanting to get revenge or who's wanting to find out what has happened to her sister. So that was such a beautiful like decision that is made in the creative room that you are like, wow, this just fits beautifully. And to care for another hero who's kind of out there on the run and to like make them care for you for other characters as well. So yeah, it's just beautiful. And so we see what Jean is battling with. We see what she has been through along with her sister. And now this point over what her powers mean. And literally we see her powers amplify from this level to that level in an instance. And in a way, this movie was a reintroduction for Spider-Man and an introduction for mutants for Jean Grey. And I think this will play a huge part after like the Secret Wars reboot, because I think Sadie Sink will continue to play Jean Grey after that as well, because I mean she is shown quite young in here. So I think we are getting kind of the entire Xavier arc where all the students are there, Jean, Cyclops and all of that, like the starting batch. And we see them grow up. We also see now Xavier and Magneto in their prime. I mean, of course, that makes sense. So again, like such a bold move from Marvel to introduce her in here. Now let's talk about the villain of the movie, which was actually the DODC or the head of the DODC. I kind of forgot his name again. Mledzger or Bletzger, something was that name. Because he wanted to have an explanatory sense of what these powers are. And that is where kind of a riffraff happens between, Jean, Sarah, and the DODC, where they are like, you don't know how to control it. That is why we'll show you how to do it. And that is where kind of people get it wrong. And that's why that kind of, stuff happened. And that is where most of the villainy happens, where Jean plays an antagonist, where she's trying to get back at DODC, but Spidey doesn't realize what he's in for because he doesn't know what Jean is doing. He doesn't know the backstory of Jean yet. And on the other hand, he's with DODC. They're kind of trying to save the city in the end. So he kind of aligns himself with the DODC. But he doesn't know what they are kind of after or what the guy is after. And so in here, more of it's like misunderstandings and not trying to understand what the other is going through, and more of like a power force, more of like, I know what to do, so I will do it. And that is what kind of the storylines with many mutant arcs is. Humans kind of forcing their will upon the mutants and not letting them chance to survive or not letting them chance to express themselves. And so even before they try to put their step forward or try to speak, they're kind of put in this locks. They are kind of put into these power dampeners. Now it's not that mutants are different. Yes, they are different, but in the end, everybody is having a human experience of things. Everybody has emotions. Now, if they have power that amplifies certain emotions, that makes things a little weird for them, but that doesn't mean they don't share this human experience of things. I hope Spidey is in Secret Wars, because in the end there's a post-credit scene where we see Spidey not found, and then Spidey is found in some deep space or something like that. So I guess that has something to do with Secret Wars. And after watching this movie, I personally don't think he's coming in Doomsday. Maybe we might get a cameo in there somewhere, maybe in the post-credit, who knows. And of course we got a montage of many different villains that Spider-Man has defeated. Tarantula, Boomerang, he also defeated the Hand. So that was interesting. And then Hand start to work for the DODC. Now, due to the set leaks that we have seen for Daredevil Born Again Season 3, we are seeing that the Hand are now like back on track, like back on their evil doings, and they are kind of fighting the Defenders now. So let's see how that goes. And now let's talk about Peter's relationship with MJ and Ned. So of course in here his secret is revealed back to MJ. She gets to know that yes, this is Peter, but she doesn't kind of share that same kind of love that Peter has for her, because of course she has no memories of him. She doesn't know who he is. In that sense, it is quite acceptable for MJ to not have those feelings. But on the other hand, when you see Peter's heartbreak, when you see Peter being like, oh man, he still goes on with it. I think that is portrayed very well. And in the end, of course, Peter and Ned, they share a huge history. They have been best friends for a long time. In the end, when they kind of like shake their hands together in like their classic handshake or whatever, Ned realizes that, oh, Peter is Spider-Man. And so yeah, it's just a great thing that he gets to reconnect with his loved ones and the only people that are actually there and who know Peter Parker. Like there might be people who know Spider-Man, like the police officer knows Spider-Man, Frank knows Spider-Man, but by the end of the movie, he reconnects with his friends who actually know Peter Parker. Yeah, it's a beautiful film. Like I would literally say this is the best Spider-Man movie that's ever made. When you are reading a comic and there are instances when you imagine, wow, this is what it might sound like in your head when you are like reading through the comics, and you attach the voices of these actors to it and their faces to it. And then when you see stuff like this that has been played out in Spider-Man Brand New Day, it literally feels like those comic panels came to life. And it's just a treat for all the Spider-Man fans, for all the superhero fans, for all the MCU fans. I just love this movie, man. This movie is not just a love letter to Spider-Man, but a love letter to Spider-Man fans as well, because this movie is made with love. This movie is made with care, and I would definitely encourage you to watch it. I mean, go watch it. What are you doing? If you're a Spidey fan, go watch this movie. Again, the director, Destin Daniel Cretton, amazing work. I loved Shang-Chi, I loved Wonder Man, and all the things that it was good at, they have been translated into this movie. All those fight scenes with the Hand, one of the most beautiful fight scenes. Again, the camera angle in here, the way you're moving along with Spidey, going around everywhere, it's just great. Like there is innovation in this film, and you can see. And Spidey is more fluid here. He can go through around the block and do certain tricks here and there. He can stay here, shoot webs all around, and can do tricks here and there. That's it. Sub to the channel. I hope I've covered it all. Follow along. Sub to the channel. That's it. I'll see you in the next.